What's the haps? I'm Meroka, and today I'm going to be taking a quick look at 0RBITALIS by Alan Zucconi. 0RBITALIS spelled with a zero, which just confuse you when you're trying to Google it, I can only presume. It's a puzzle game about gravity and orbital mechanics and things, which does seem to be a common theme these days. I don't know, there seems to be a whole bunch of indie games that kind of dealt with that kind of thing in recent history. I don't know, flavour of the month, I guess. Certainly there was Gravity Ghost, which was fairly noteworthy not so long ago, and I've seen a few other things pop up in recent history, so yeah, a lot of this floating about right now. There is no options whatsoever, really, to speak of to any great extent. I mean, if I hover over the controls there, that's, yeah, all your options are basically bound to hotkeys, which is to say you can press Q to change the quality, you can press F to toggle full screen. If you do it in a windowed mode, well, at least certainly I get 874 by 852 resolution. I don't know if that varies depending on your monitor at all, but if nothing else, I have no way to change that. And then full screen, it just puts huge, hideous black bars down both sides of the screen. So, not really ideal there. Not a big fan of that. So yeah, not much to speak of options-wise. We can, if I click continue, it'll throw me straight into a level. So I'm going to head to the star map so we can see all the levels in the world and things. So we've got this nice little sort of galactic map. From mouse to side, you can scroll around. It's kind of a radial wheel. Again, it's actually, to make the comparison, they've laid it out in a not entirely dissimilar fashion to something like Gravity Ghost. So there are 100 levels to play through, divided into different sectors. Each sector's got a few slightly different mechanics going on in them. If we head back to one of the earlier sectors, if we have a look at, I don't know, let's grab something from the alpha sectors, some of the basic mechanics of the game, I suppose. So we can have a look at that. So we have stars. We have the big red star over there. We've got a little, I don't know, guess planetary kind of thing. It's all kind of abstract, and you get one shot. It is from the Ludum Dare 28, which the theme was you only get one, which is the same game jam that actually produced, what was it? Titan Souls, in fact. So you get one shot. You get to launch your little probe here, indicated by the red line. The length of the red line is how much force you fire with, and then obviously the direction of the mouse is the angle. And you got to try and keep your probe alive for as long as possible. There is a little circle that runs around the outside of the visible space here, and if that fills up, it starts at the right-hand side, it'll go around the screen. If it makes it all the way around, 360 degrees, one full revolution, you will completely complete the level and be allowed to move on. The goal is basically just to survive as long as you can. There is a high scoreboard to see how long can you survive. Clearly this is not the optimal strategy for this level. I'm just trying to do a little bit of an orbit there. That's not going to work. I guess what I probably want to do is try and loop around the main star somewhat. If you go out of bounds, like so, yeah, you will be asked to restart the level. You can't go too far, but there's a little bit of leeway. It's a little bit forgiving. You can sort of skirt the edges a little bit. That's going to go out of bounds, I'm fairly sure, yeah. If you can see it's going to mess up, you can just at any point just press R to just reset the level. I can't remember how I did this level, to be honest. I feel like just doing a little orbit around this thing kind of works, but I don't know if it does. Because if you do it, a lot of the strategy I found that seems to work for a lot of stuff is just big, long, low, not low, quite high actually orbits. So big, slow, high orbits that just sort of lazily arc around the entire thing. If you press right mouse button, you can go into a kind of bullet time thing. That's available right from the start, but the game does not actually particularly present it to you as an option until like several sections into the game. It's like, oh, by the way, here you have a bullet time. It's like, oh, thanks. The mechanics of the game are such that tiny, tiny variations in how you do things dramatically changes the outcome of things. So the bullet time's kind of necessary to try and get any kind of precision whatsoever, I think. I'm going to head back to the map because this level is not working out for me. Let's head over to another one. I mean, I've done it at some points, but God knows how I did it. Let us go with, let's go see Sedna. Sedna could be interesting. Okay, so this one here, these levels are a bit more about motion, I guess. There's lots of small objects on lots of erratic paths, huge paths sweeping across the entire thing. So each sector kind of has its own kind of theme, I guess, kind of thing going on. Here, obviously, there's just a lot of motion going on in these, and I've crashed. It'd be nice to actually finish one of these levels one day, I suppose, for you guys, so you can actually see how to actually finish a level. Whether I can do that or not remains to be seen. So obviously it does tell you it tells you a little ways ahead of where you're going as to how far, as to whether you're going to hit anything, where it's going, but it doesn't give you a full path. So a lot of it kind of comes down to guesswork. I mean, at this point, whatever I hit there hadn't even come on the screen at the start. So there's a great deal of trial and error, which, you know, for a puzzle game, I don't know, puzzle games I feel like you should be able to actually figure it out. Whereas this, there's no real figuring it out so much as there is fire it off randomly and hope you win. And even when you can, even if you have done the level a couple times and seen where the mechanics come through, it's like, oh, okay, there's this larger chunk here is going to influence things. I know that's there now, so I can maybe kind of try to plan for it. I don't know. Even then, like I say, such tiny changes make such dramatic differences, and everything's already moving at the same time. Where you will launch your craft from, or it continually moves, it makes it incredibly difficult. Let's have a look at Geminorum. Let's move to a different system. Because everything is moving, it's really difficult to actually get any kind of consistency. Some of the levels I found myself like immediately just mashing the left mouse click just to launch the satellite the moment the level starts, just to try and get some kind of consistency between results. It's like, if none of the objects in the system have any opportunity to move at all, I can get a consistent launch frame. So on this level you kind of got the blue objects. The blue objects have kind of, I guess, kind of repulsion, or sort of inverse of gravity, as it were. So if I go near the blue object, it will bounce off, as you saw with some of the trajectories when I was sort of plotting it out. If I go near the blue objects, it kind of repels it, so I bounce around that, and then that's going to go probably out of the system. I suspect so. It might come back. I don't know. So, see some of these really long, slow trajectories. There we go, that actually finished that level because it was on just such a long, slow trajectory. The nature of orbital mechanics is such that as you get further away from the level, the objects travel slower. So you can actually, you know, given that your object is simply just to stay alive for as long as possible, traveling slowly means you're actually got a good chance of succeeding. So there we go. Then once you finish the level, you get given your time down to thousandths of a second, and everybody else's time down to thousandths of a second, and you get this little histogram at the bottom. This tells you kind of where everybody placed relative to you. So the overwhelming majority of people did about 12 seconds. Slightly less people managed 16, which is roughly where I placed, and it trails off down to all the way up to Mr. Slarty Barfast, who apparently managed to stay in orbit for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is quite impressive. So we head back to the star system. I can go have a look at something new. Which system? Where am I at? I think it's this one. Yeah, the current system I'm on has got this one. The new mechanic in this one is kind of pulsars. So you kind of got these orange stars, which the gravity on that one kind of fades in and out. So not that that's how pulsars really work, but nonetheless, it's a game. I suppose it's a fairly abstract game, so not really much point in complaining about that. But yeah, as you can see, the kind of the color around that star fades out, and when it does so, the gravity pretty much turns off. There is very little gravity actually doing anything on that star. So you kind of need to plan ahead and plan for that. So early on, when you launch the ship, you get a gravity. That's not going to work. Let's try that again. You will get some gravity from it, but not a whole heck of a lot. Ideally, what you need to be doing here, it's going to lose all effects of gravity, and it's just going to shoot off into space because there's no stars for it to attract it. So obviously the objective here is to kind of try and keep in the gravity of an object, such that I suppose what I need to do is try and get back to the parent star, whatever the square is supposed to represent. I don't know if it's necessarily a star. It doesn't seem to give off a light source. Planet, I suppose, is what it is. So that's going to turn off, and that's not going to work. It's going to shoot off in space. What I need to do is loop around that whilst gravity is active somehow, and try and get back into orbit around the planet, and then, I don't know, wing it from there on out. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of trial and error. It's like, oh, I can kind of see how this works. What I could do, I suppose, is just try to stay in orbit around the planet, which will work for a little while because there's nothing to disturb me, but as soon as the gravity turns back on, it throws my orbit off and I crash into the planets, so that's not a terribly solid strategy either. Ideally, I want to... Yeah, that might work. No, I'm not close enough to the planets. Oh, well, there you go. You can see all these little arrows on the map, which kind of give you an indication of where you shot from before, which is nice, so that you can kind of plan your trajectories, like, oh, well, I shot from here before, so I want to shoot from here before, or I was here, so next time I want to try shooting a little bit more to the right, which is nice, except for that, once again, there's the time mechanic. You can shoot from the same place as you shot from last time, but you simply cannot shoot at the same time as last time. It doesn't tell you when you fired that shot. This planet might have done a full lap, a full rotation of the star before you actually took this shot before. You don't know that. You can't actually tell that out. So this effect is really not anywhere near as useful as it could be. I believe it's, if you press H, you do get kind of, yeah, you get a heat map of where other players are or were, presumably at that point in time. So as it goes along, see the heat map fades. Most people have failed by this point in things, so the heat map fades. So if I press R, we want to restart the level. Got a bullet time. Once again, I mean, I've done all these levels, but there's just such an element of trial and error that I don't know quite how I managed any of that. I don't know if I could kind of get... if this is going to work. It isn't going to work, no. Okay, never mind. Well, you can see how it works, certainly, even if I'm really, really bad at it. It's just keep trying, try again until you eventually get it. Which I feel is just kind of a poor way to do a puzzle game. Like, a puzzle game surely should be about thinking and strategizing and planning ahead and, you know, solving a puzzle. If solving a puzzle just involves clicking in slightly different places and hoping it goes better than last time, that feels like a poor puzzle design. I mean, maybe it just involves you having a innate grasp of orbital mechanics and can thoroughly plan trajectories of moving bodies through space over a long period of time. But I suspect that's an ability not a lot of people have. And as such, it genuinely does boil down to trial and error. So this is the next level I've got available to me. Let's see what we can do here. So we got... yeah, you can see, just as even if I just hold the mouse in place, you can see how the mechanics of the pulsars work quite clearly there. So let's do that. Let's see how that works. I guess you kind of need to orbit around them. I guess you'd probably want to be on a fairly tight orbit, I guess. But I don't know. Once again, maybe if I could just get an orbit right round the edge of the system, really, really slow and lazy, that might work. Let's try that. Let's see what can I do. But the nature of the pulsars is such that it's going to change quite rapidly. I don't know. This might work. Oh, that could work. That could work. Oh, look at that. The red circle was almost inside. I think a few fractions of a second longer I would have had that, actually. It's kind of a shame. Oh, well, let's try that. And that one's going to fade in. Oh, we could actually get an orbit right around the whole thing. Interesting, interesting. No. Oh well. I'm onto something there. I'm onto something. But, nonetheless, I'll solve that one later in my own time. So, yeah, it's a very simple mechanic. It's obviously based on the Ludum Dare that generated a lot of games with very simple mechanics. It's literally... hold right mouse button to slow things down if you want to, and left click once and once only, and then watch and wait for it to play out. So if you're wanting any complex mechanics, there's certainly mechanics in there, but they're very passive mechanics. The player doesn't get much control over what happens beyond initially launching it. So mechanically speaking, it's kind of a bit bland. There's certainly things going on, but as I say, it's all out of the control of the player. It's that other objects might come into the system, gravity changes, some things repel. I'm sure there are quite a lot more mechanics will be introduced. I think there are like 12 different sectors in the game. I'm up to about sector 5 here, so I guess there would be like about another 7 different mechanics introduced as you progress through the game, potentially. But at the same time, they're all very passive things. The player doesn't actively get to use them in any way. It still boils down to that one: find a point on the screen and click it at the right time to make things happen, and then hope it happens. which I don't know, it just doesn't feel like quite enough for me. I feel like I would want to be doing more in my game. It feels like it's a very hands-off game, really. Anyway, if we head back to the title screen, there's a couple of other things in the game to flesh it out a little bit more. There is a level editor, so if you wanted to create your own levels, you can do that. And then we have a daily level, which is kind of a nice touch, which is, I guess, sort of inspired a lot by a lot of mobile design these days, which is it will give you one daily challenge, which I have no idea what these mechanics are. This is presumably introduced in later stuff, I guess. Which means... what now? It splits into several probes, and I need to keep them all alive, or what? I don't know what that was about. That's clearly more advanced mechanics, and I guess these kind of levels are probably more aimed at people who've played through at least a bulk of, if not all of, the story levels, such as it's a story, you know, the main campaign, as it were. And yeah, it's basically just compete to see how effective you can be, and apparently I ranked 6th in the world, which suggests that I can only imagine this level hasn't been up very long, is the only way I can possibly interpret that one. So, yeah. 5 seconds, .533. I am the 6th best person at this level in the world. Go me! Hooray. Yeah. So there'll be a different level each day, and you can compete with the world to see who is the best at Orbitalis. So there's that as well. This is available on Steam now. It's available for Windows and Mac for £6.99 your regional equivalent, and there is, for probably another couple of days or so, there is a 25% launch discount, which will bring it down a little bit below. But on the whole, I don't know, I'm not finding a lot to really compel me to play this. I can't remember if I even mentioned this. I'm pretty sure the game's locked at 30 frames per second as well, which is also pretty shoddy. It may just be that it's poorly optimized as well, because now that I come to record it, frame rate is dropping frequently below 30, quite consistently below 30. When I'm not recording, it just runs at about 30 frames per second, which makes me feel like the frame rate's locked if it's just not really poorly optimized. I'm not sure which it is. And for a game that looks like this, I don't know, running at 30 frames per second just seems wrong. So, in terms of just options as well as performance and mechanics, there's not a lot for me to recommend it, I'm afraid. But there you go, that is Orbitalis. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Meroka. See you next time.